Howdy. I've got a really interesting interview here for you. Now, there's been a paper published by Maria Attard, who is one of Dr. Michael Archer's underlings. This paper's never been peer-reviewed. It was only ever reviewed by Dr. Michael Archer. The funding for this paper was massive. It was in the hundreds of the thousands of dollars. The paper purports that thylacines had a weak jaw, and therefore they only ate little things like wallabies and kangaroos. Yeah, kangaroos aren't exactly small. But anyway, the paper I think is basically toilet paper. It's not worth the paper it was printed on. The Smithsonian Institute wasn't very happy with it because it goes against everything they know about jaw strength of mammals and animals. I mean, here you have a dog, it's got a strong jaw. Here you have a thylacine, it's got a weak jaw. Same size as a dog, actually got a 120-degree jaw bite. Now everything, like a crocodile or a hippopotamus, it has a big jaw gape on it like that, has a very strong jaw, but no, thylacines don't. Therefore, they couldn't have possibly killed sheep because they've got a weak jaw. They did kill sheep. They probably got blamed for killing sheep in Tasmania more than what they did. There was probably rustling going on and just really unsuccessful farming practices, so they use the thylacine as a scapegoat. But they absolutely do take sheep. I've had quite a few witnesses tell me they take sheep, right? This interview I've got here for you now with Laura has been nearly 5 years in the making, from when I very first spoke to her, and then I lost her in the group and I couldn't find her message and I couldn't remember her name, sadly, because I have hundreds of people message me. But Laura, when she was only young, she was visiting a family friend's farm and staying with her grandparents. She saw a thylacine come out of the bush, attack sheep, and remove their head and walk off with their head. Now that's what she told me 4.5 years ago. Sadly, since then, Laura's contracted COVID and she's had a real struggle with it, and it's actually starting to affect her memory. Fortunately, she remembers most of the detail, but I can assure you, she told me back then how it removed their head and it absolutely horrified her and scared the hell out of her. She was only 10 years old at the time. This happened in 1997. Laura is a vet nurse and has been for quite a few years. She knows dogs, she knows their behaviour, she's seen dog attacks on animals brought into the vets. She's got a very interesting testimony. Here it is. I hope you enjoy it. Hi Laura, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for finally getting a chance to talk to you. It's only been about 4 years.
Yes.
Laura, you're...
I'm very forgetful.
Nah, that's all right, mate. Life gets in the way of a lot of things, sadly. I have that many people message me on Messenger that they get lost because there's literally hundreds of them. And then every now and then a name appears across the top and I think, oh, who's that? I click on it and see how I know them and why they're in my Messenger. And that's how I got back onto you the other week. I thought, that's that lady that works at the vets.
Yes. Well, I actually heard you on the radio the other day.
Ah, did you now? Over there
I
too.
was at work, and I was just like, is that you?
Yeah, that was a good interview actually. They asked some really intelligent questions for a bunch of DJs. I was quite impressed.
I didn't hear the whole thing. I just heard the tail end of it.
I put it on our YouTube actually. They gave me a recording of it anyway.
Yeah. Awesome.
Laura, you know I'm recording this. That's okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. Your sighting when you first told me about it, it must have been 4 years ago, yeah? Be close.
Probably, yeah.
But from memory, you had the most unique experience, I suppose, with what you saw, because you saw the beheading of an animal by an animal, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Now, I believe you were quite young at the time. How old were you?
I was, I would have to say maybe 10 or 11, something like that. I regularly stayed down on my family friends and grandparents' property in Margaret River. So, I think I must have been around that age.
Is it okay if I ask how old are you now, mate?
Oh, I'm 35.
So this was about 25 years ago?
Yeah.
So that would make it somewhere in the late 90s, 97 or something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's hear it. What was going on? What happened?
So obviously it's been a long time. But what I do recall is because the house is kind of on top of a hill.
Yep.
And down below it is kind of fields where the sheep were. It's mostly a sheep farm. And I saw something that looked, dog-shaped, but the way it moved wasn't, a sheep dog or anything like that. And the dogs that they have on the property are kept in kennels most of the time. So, yeah, I just saw something kind of rounding up, like running around the kind of sheep. And then obviously it attacked one of them.
Yep.
But it particularly, it went for the head. And it's all a bit, hard to remember because it was so long ago. But, yeah, it particularly, it attacked its head. And
so it was quite traumatic for you as a 10-year-old girl, no doubt.
Yes, very.
What do you remember about that part of it?
Honestly, I don't remember too much about it. I think I probably had a bit of memory when I said, spoke about it then. I got COVID, and like a lot of people, I have unfortunately got long COVID. So my memory is not as great as it was before. But yeah, I just remember that it was really unusual that it went for its head and its face, and it took the sheep down and was attacking the head, which obviously some dogs and stuff like that will go for the throat in animals, but you find with most sheep dogs and things like that, they'll go for the feet because that's what they're kind of trained to do, is nip at the feet. And as far as I'm aware, there were no issues with feral dogs or anything like that. In fact, a lot of people had. The only reason I knew about thylacine is because other people around the area had seen them.
Okay.
And they even had what was called a thylacine trap there. It was a big cage in the bush.
Okay,
so,
yep.
I had obviously no idea at that stage that that's what I saw until you go back and see kind of that old video of the last thylacine in its
walking
cage.
Around in the cage.
Yeah, and it's just the way that they sort of creep. Sheepdog get quite low.
Yeah, they crawl on their belly.
Down and they stalk beforehand. This thing, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like it was tippy-toeing.
Okay.
The movement that it was doing was not typical of any dog that I've seen.
Yep. Now, just to clarify something, you work in a vet's, yeah?
I do, yeah. I've been a vet nurse for almost 15 years.
Okay, so you know a reasonable amount about dogs and their locomotion.
Yeah, I also
when
run
they do attack
an
things.
animal rescue as well, and I rehome mostly cats now, but I used to do a lot of dogs, and I've rehomed dangerous dogs and done a lot with behaviour with dogs and things like that. So I'm pretty dog savvy. I know kind of what their body language is, what they do when they, are stalking and opposed to a play bow and things like that. Like I know how to read dog body language pretty well.
Yep.
And it's not anything I could say was dog behaviour in any way, shape or form.
Yep. Now, go back to the sighting. Obviously, later on, as you grew up and learned a bit more about animals, you realised that, hey, that's what I saw back then. That was a thylacine, yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
So what were the determining features of what you can remember from what you actually saw? Was it stripes? Was it the colour? Was it the shape? What was it?
It was the shape, particularly, and their legs, how quite long their legs are, particularly that video of the dog pacing, which obviously pacing in a cage is not natural behaviour, but just the way that its legs moved and the way that it moved opposed to how
a dog does.
A traditional dog moves, I was like, oh my God.
It's because of that kangaroo type rear end.
Yeah, because they've got that kind of higher back end and just...
Lower front end.
Like, almost like a cartoon, when they do the on their tippy toes.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of, the way that it moved, but obviously really quickly. it didn't particularly get down really low, as far as I saw, to go in for, any stalking or anything like that.
So when you said to me before that it attacked the head, did it actually sever the head and take it with it?
I at that point, I'm pretty sure I was like, I'm out of here. Kind of went to my grandparents.
Yeah.
And I don't recall whether they went down and,
So it was your grandparents' house.
Unfortunately, they passed away. I mean, the people still own the property.
Yep.
So I could ask them if they remember, but they were often not there when we were there. That we house at the farmhouse. So.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I know that I think they did have problems with sheep being killed.
Yep.
So, and they may have seen thylacines as well on the property, because they're the ones that I kind of first learnt about what a thylacine was from.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I can't recall afterwards. I just remember being obviously extremely freaked out.
Yep.
By it, but
did you go? You don't remember going to them and being upset and talking to them about it? You don't remember that part?
I don't think. I'm not sure that they were there. I'm pretty sure I spoke to my grandma about it.
Yeah.
But I don't recall ever speaking to the Silverthorns who own the property.
Yep. Okay. So when you originally told me about it, I think it was because I'd put some headless kangaroos up in the group on Facebook, and that made you come forward and talk to me about what you'd seen, because you'd seen something like that happening. And so I'm pretty certain you did say to me, in fact, I'm positive you said to me that it did take the head, and that's why I was so keen to talk to you.
I'm sure that that's what I saw and that's what we spoke about. But
yeah,
as I said, my memory is just is actually terrible still at the moment. So
no, that's fair enough. That's okay.
I do. That's the thing. I do remember discussing the head trauma and taking the head and things like that, but I can't remember the actual details of it now.
Of seeing that, yeah, I get it. So later on in life, when you thought about it, you realised that was a thylacine.
Yeah.
And it fits in with, I suppose, a lot of the other sightings in the area and stuff. So.
Yeah, well, that's obviously when I kind of figured out what I thought it was, I would always tell people, like, yeah, I've seen a thylacine. There was never any doubt in my mind that it wasn't that. My aunt, I'm pretty sure I spoke quite extensively with her about it.
Okay, yep.
As well, so I can ask her. She might
have a few more details.
Because she it was her parents' farm, so that we always went with. So she might have a bit more clarity on that as well. But yeah, I'm convinced that's what it was. That I don't see how it could be anything else.
Yeah. Oh, well, see
that I've seen dog attacks. I've seen dogs fighting dogs.
Yeah, but they don't go for those body parts in particular.
No, yeah. I mean, my own dog has fought multiple dogs, and I've had to break it up. I've seen how they fight, and it's not the same.
Sure. I'm really glad that I got to finally speak to you about this, because the headless kangaroo thing is massive, and it's all over Australia.
Yeah.
And they keep trying to say that thylacines had weak jaws, which is just such a load of crap.
It's also at, considering all the other species that are sort of similar, like if you look at a canine and things like that, they have strong jaws. So how would they determine that from back in, a long time ago, especially if they're known carnivores?
The paper's never been peer reviewed, actually.
Yeah.
It's only been reviewed by the person that arranged the funding for it. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah. Well, I definitely. I'm. You don't call me crazy, but I'm still convinced that it was a thylacine. Obviously, other people in that area have seen sightings as well.
Yeah.
Because they literally had the thylacine cage there, which I didn't obviously know
that it was for
what
that.
a thylacine was or any of that before.
Yeah.
wasn't till, that video kept circulating later.
Did you, just out of curiosity, as a kid, did you keep going back to that property after that with your grandparents?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yep. And you never saw anything else ever again or anything like that?
No, not that I recall. It could be a little bit of coincidence, but I'm super scared of the bush, just because there's bush around it. But yeah, like I always think something's watching me.
That's usually a good thing to go by sometimes,
Yeah, I always feel like something's watching me. So I would say that's probably from that. But yeah, no, I still went back there and never saw anything. But everyone in that area, I'm convinced there's thylacines there.
Yeah, because there obviously is.
And I'm assuming that you get quite a few reports from Margaret River area.
Everywhere from the Nullarbor right up to Port Hedland, really.
Yeah.
Some areas more denser than others, like Bustleton and Nannup and Albany as well.
Margaret River has a considerable forest area that people walk through and things like that sometimes, but there's quite a bit of thick forest there.
Yeah, they love the coastline as well. They'll hug the coastline quite a bit.
Ah.
There's plenty of prey on the coast and always good sandy shrubby country.
And Margaret River has beautiful beaches as well as the thick kind of foresty areas.
Yeah, so it's a variety of habitats. There'd be plenty of game, plenty of prey.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really glad we finally got to chat.
Yeah, and I'll have a chat to my aunt and things like that, and potentially I can get a hold of the Silverthorns who own the property as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe they can shed a bit of light on it too.
And see if they can shed any further light onto it, because they run they actually have now. They run a kind of campsite there, so people
really?
Kind of rent it out and go there and things like that. So they do get a considerable amount of people through the property as well. So surely it's not just going to be me.
Yeah, well, if they want to talk to me directly, by all means, get their number for me and I'll give them a ring.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, I can definitely give them a call and see.
All right, don't forget.
Yep, I won't. Go tell them now. Shoot my diary.
All right, mate. No worries. All right. Well, thanks heaps for your time and
you.
Good luck with everything. I hope it gets better for you.
Thank you. You too. Good luck.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.